Kicking everything off at Emperor Tianxiu's grand coronation ceremony, the atmosphere is pure grandeur. And as the guests of honor are received, the announcer calls out the name of Sovereign Duan En. Expecting a triumphant entrance, all eyes turn to the imposing Golden Gate. But tearing through the sky, a modern jet suddenly appears, making no sense at all in this ancient world. And stepping out of the ship in style, the guy arrives demanding respect and showing off his power. As the gigantic aircraft lands, the air pressure nearly knocks over everyone standing nearby. Amazed by this imperial carriage, the onlookers stand with their mouths wide open, completely confused. Blushing with excitement, one of the girls in the crowd nearly faints at the sight of such handsomeness. Walking through the smoke, he gives off an incredible aura that puts everyone else to shame. Immediately bowing before the sovereign, the crowd pays their respects in unison. Appearing out of nowhere, a futuristic interface congratulates the host for completing the coronation mission. Holding the glowing reward, he decides it's time to change the rules of this game. Questioning how he got so stunning, our protagonist breaks the fourth wall to talk to us. Quoting General MacArthur on a cell phone screen, the story flashes back to explain everything. Laughing like a maniac in his hospital bed, he plans his own funeral in advance. Shining intensely, a mysterious light blinds everything around and warps reality. Screaming in terror, our boy wakes up with no idea what's going on in this strange place. Shoveling dirt into a grave, two goons are busy burying a body in the middle of the woods. Feeling the weight of the dirt on his face, he realizes the situation is getting serious. Rising from the makeshift coffin, he wonders in fright if he has truly transmigrated. Backing away in fear, the thugs think the body has turned into a zombie or something. Facing the two guys, he asks them point blank what on earth they think they're doing. Thinking the kid has lost his memory, one of them coldly suggests they finish the job. Charging forward relentlessly, the goon tries to end it with brute force. Dodging at the last second, our protagonist avoids the final blow with impressive reflexes. Yelling for him to just be done with, the enemy unleashes a cutting energy blast in his direction. Destroying the surrounding trees, the attack narrowly misses its target, kicking up dust. Feeling the power of his new body pulsing, he realizes he can still fight on equal terms. From high up in a tree, he warns that if they don't take him out now, his revenge is certain. Wiping blood from his mouth, his gaze shifts completely into a deadly mode. Calling the boy useless trash, the thug doubts his ability to fight back. However, in a swift move, our protagonist grabs the enemy's neck, shutting him up. Lifting the guy off the ground with just one hand, he decides to test his new abilities. Asking the system for a little help, his eyes glow with a sinister light. Slamming the body into the ground, dust flies up violently from the hard impact. Smashing the bad guy's face into the dirt, the blow is brutal and leaves his opponent motionless. Surprised by his own strength, he notices his hands are unharmed and stronger than ever. Suddenly, the other goon launches a treacherous blast of fire from behind. Hitting him dead on, the flames engulf our protagonist as the villain laughs in satisfaction. But to everyone's shock, he blocks the fire with his bare hands as if it were nothing. Receiving point notifications, the system fairy celebrates the successful defense. Automatically consuming a protective item, a barrier saved his life in the nick of time. Trembling with fear, the thug can't believe the boy survived the infernal flames. Emerging from the fire unharmed with his clothes torn, he announces that it's now his turn to attack. Seeing the monster coming for him, the goon panics and freezes on the spot. Revealing his identity as Duan En, the protagonist asks if the guy has already forgotten his face. Explaining how the system works, it notifies him that acting out of character generates a lot of points. Taunting the enemy with a sadistic smile, he says there's still time to try and attack. Turning his back, the thug tries to run and lure him into an obvious trap. Spotting the trick, our boy notices the tree behind him instantly withered from poison. Chasing after the runaway, he scoffs at the guy's nerve for turning his back in a fight. Cornered against a tree trunk, the villain realizes there's nowhere left to run. Stuttering in terror, he desperately asks what the protagonist wants from him. Screaming for him to stay away, the coward sees the final, merciless attack coming. Trying to negotiate, the thug warns that taking out a clan member will bring serious trouble. Ignoring any warnings, our protagonist coldly prepares the finishing blow. Echoing through the forest, only a scream of pain is heard, followed by absolute silence. Observing the result, he laments the tragic fate of the body's previous owner. Vowing to take on his legacy, he swears to follow the path of vengeance to the very end. Arriving at a humble residence, the scene shifts to a simple house in the middle of nowhere. Surrounded by ill-intentioned men, the protagonist's sister tries to resist their advances. Pulling at her cloak, the disgusting old man says he'll take matters into his own hands. Appearing with total arrogance, the third young master tells the others to back away from her. Crying in anger, the girl screams for them to get out of there and leave her alone. Grabbing her face forcefully, the playboy warns that he's getting what he wants today. Calling the intruder a scoundrel, she desperately tries to break free from his grasp. Leaning in close to her, the creep praises the girl's natural scent in a disgusting way. Sliding his hand onto her shoulder, he promises to be gentle if she cooperates. Smashing the gate with a brutal kick, someone yells for them to stop this nonsense right now. Appearing with veins popping on his forehead, our boy warns he'll take out anyone who touches her. Shocked by his presence, the goons ask how he's still alive after all that. Smiling with disdain, the villain says the protagonist is too sentimental for the current situation. Ordering his guards to attack, the young master doesn't want to waste time talking. Rushing into the fight, the goons try to surround the intruder from all sides. Hitting two at once, our protagonist sends them all packing with a double punch. Staring down the villain with a sharp gaze, our protagonist warns that he's not the same weakling he used to be. Shocked by the strength he displayed, the goons can't believe a mere novice cultivator did that. Desperate about the situation, his sister screams, begging him to run and survive at all costs. But with an arrogant smile, the playboy interrupts, saying she should be worried about herself. Mocking her brother, the villain claims that piece of trash will get the end he deserves. In a surprise move, the enemy lunges forward quickly, trying to catch our boy off guard. Kicking his own henchman towards the protagonist, he uses his subordinate as a distraction. Flying into the wall, the poor guy lets out a cry of pain after being used as a human shield. Dodging the thrown body, our protagonist listens to his opponent's empty threats. Showing off his powerful aura, the rich kid brags about being in the second stage of the martial realm. However, without flinching an inch, our boy blocks the direct attack with pure confidence. Grabbing the enemy's fist, he scoffs that strength bought with pills is worthless. And with a loud slap across the face, the system notification pops up, confirming the public humiliation. Feeling his face sting, the villain is in disbelief that he was touched by someone he considers inferior. Exploding with rage, he yells and prepares a new attack loaded with dangerous energy. As their fists collide violently, a shockwave makes the house's structure tremble. But our protagonist's strength is superior and shatters the enemy's defense as if it were glass. Screaming in pain, the third young master is thrown backward, completely out of control. Crashing hard into the rubble, dust rises and covers the defeated man's body. Questioning reality, the villain can't accept losing to trash when he's so powerful. Standing before him, our boy tells it like it is, saying a loser is a loser, period. Furious with the lecture, the playboy refuses to accept it and launches a desperate final attack. Screaming that he'll take everyone out, he unleashes the mountain-shattering kick with all he's got. But with complete calm, the protagonist explains that fancy arts have simple counters. Grabbing the enemy's ankle in mid-air, he crushes the bones with an iron grip. Echoing throughout the courtyard, a sharp scream of agony comes from the villain's throat. Thrown to the ground in humiliation, the arrogant man now trembles in fear as the protagonist asks if he wants more. Questioning where all his swagger went, our boy commands absolute respect. Begging for his life, the coward gets on his knees and pleads for mercy, calling the protagonist Grandpa. Watching from a distance, his sister can hardly believe that warrior is her little brother. Trying to buy his way out, the villain offers all his savings as a bribe. Destroying the money bag with a punch, our protagonist warns that cash can't solve everything. Insisting on the deal, the playboy says it's just compensation for the damage to the cabin. And getting another slap to the face for free, the system scores points for the enemy's shamelessness. Whimpering with a hand on his face, he asks why on earth he got hit again. Shouting indignantly, the villain says the protagonist is crossing the line with this violence. With a cold look, our boy sarcastically asks if he really thinks so. Changing his mind on the spot, the coward denies everything and says the beating was just right. Cashing in on someone else's narcissism, the system celebrates the easy profit. Deciding to let the guy go, our protagonist plans to use him as a human ATM in the future. Kicking the scum out, he tells the playboy to take his useless goons and leave. And with a final kick to the rear, the villain is sent flying out the door in a humiliating fashion. Running without looking back, the coward promises to get out of their sight immediately. But once he's far away and safe, he shouts, swearing revenge and promising to pay them back double. Turning his attention to what matters, our boy asks if his sister is okay. Touching his face, the girl emotionally asks if it's really her little N. Scratching his head awkwardly, he quickly thinks of how to explain this drastic change. Seizing the opportunity, the system fairy offers a ready-made excuse for a cheap price. Accepting the offer instantly, he lets the system take over the miraculous narrative. Narrating a fake story about falling off a cliff and meeting a secret master, it all fits together. Crying with relief, his sister thanks their deceased parents that he can finally cultivate. Hugging her brother tightly, she lets out all the tears she's held back for years. Comforting the girl, he apologizes for being a burden for so long. Promising eternal protection, our protagonist vows that no one will ever hurt her again. Blaming herself for her weakness, she says she wishes she had been strong enough to protect him before. Changing the heavy mood, he pulls his sister along to go to the city and buy new clothes. Arriving in Zarin at night, the city is lit up and bustling with life. Choosing fine fabrics, he asks for her opinion on an elegant cloak. Complimenting his sister's beauty, he says anything looks good on her. Worried, she warns that the villain Duan-san is vengeful and will definitely be back. Reassuring his sister, our boy tells her to rest without fear. Leaving the room quietly, he lets her sleep in peace. Breathing in the night air, he feels like he's finally truly living in this world. Receiving a new mission, the system demands that he level up quickly. Calculating the necessary points, the goal for the next stages is quite high. Realizing that time is short, he notices glowing red eyes in the darkness of the forest. Charging forward fiercely, a pack of demonic wolves launches an attack. Punching the first beast in the head, the impact is hard and brutal. Fighting several at once, he takes the opportunity to test his physical limits. Taking them down one by one, the bodies of the beasts begin to pile up on the ground. However, the points from the wolves are low, and he realizes it will take too long at this rate. Emerging from the shadows, a second-stage armored rat appears to complicate things. Roaring and showing its claws, the beast is much more dangerous than the previous wolves. Remembering the reward chest, he asks the system to open it right now, in the middle of the fight. And pulling out a new sword, our protagonist activates the Tiangsu sword technique, ready for the takedown. Admiring the new sword the system gave him for free, he enjoys the unexpected gift. Encountering 2 giant centipedes right off the bat, the practical test begins now. Slicing the monsters in half in the blink of an eye, the movement is perfect. Impressed that the blade's edge didn't even get dirty, he laughs, pleased with the weapon. However, time is running out, and the mission clock keeps ticking away the seconds. Searching the forest for more targets, it seems the creatures have mysteriously vanished. Thinking out loud, he suspects his overwhelmingly strong aura is scaring away the prey. Suddenly, he stumbles upon a wild bull, already down and torn to shreds on the ground. Analyzing the fresh blood in the carcass, he realizes the assailant is still nearby. Following the trail of destruction, he decides to investigate cautiously to avoid being caught. Spotting a female figure crouched up ahead, he finds the bizarre scene strange. Devouring the monster's raw flesh, the girl looks like a famished wild animal. Realizing she's not all there, our protagonist decides to quietly slip away. Accidentally stepping on a dry twig, the sound breaks the silence of the woods at the worst possible time. Turning her blood-covered face, she stares at the intruder while he tries to hide his fear. Screaming like a beast, she lunges at him with an intense bloodlust. Explaining the situation, the system reveals that she is a necromancer corpse fused with a monster. Leaping with incredible agility, the creature doesn't even give him time to breathe. Blocking the blow that shatters the rock behind him, our boy feels the pressure of the impact. Commenting on the girl's savagery, he prepares for a real fight with no more games. Deciding to test her defense, he launches a quick, probing thrust. Biting the blade with her teeth, she stops the attack with pure insanity. Releasing the stuck sword, he draws a second, hidden blade for a surprise. Piercing the monster's chest, blood splatters everywhere from the final blow. Thinking it's over, he scoffs, saying it wasn't that hard to win. But finding the lack of a confirmation notification strange, he sees her eye open again. Regenerating the mortal wound in seconds, the creature gets up as if nothing happened. Attacking again, the charge is now much faster and more violent. Noticing the power increase, our protagonist realizes she evolves with each regeneration. Holding back her claws with his sword, sparks fly as he's pushed backward. Remembering the rules for zombies, he figures he needs to destroy the head to win. Roaring furiously, the undead creature leaps for a final attack with everything she's got. Slashing downward, our boy doesn't hesitate for a second in his counterattack. Sentencing her to her end, the blade descends relentlessly, cutting through the air. Separating her head from her body, the shadow of the strike marks the end of the brutal fight. Receiving a flood of points, the system confirms the big, high-level victory. Cleaning his sword, he notes that aiming for the head always solves a zombie problem. Looking at the starry sky, the night wears on, and the mission deadline is getting tight. Walking through the woods, he hopes to find another worthy enemy or event. Hearing a strange noise and screams, he draws his sword, ready for new action. Seeing women's clothing hanging from a tree, he wonders if it's another bizarre trap. Peeking at the scene, he catches a guy harassing a defenseless girl in the clearing. Sneaking up from behind in absolute silence, our protagonist prepares to startle the villain. Accusing the guy of using a cowardly poison, he gets the creep's attention. Turning his head in shock, the guy can't believe he was caught in the act. Tightening his grip on the young woman's neck, the villain complains about being treated like trash by the guild. Shouting that he wants to inherit everything, he reveals he's the ungrateful and ambitious adopted son. Watching from above, our hero laments the amount of human garbage that exists around here. Choking his victim more and more, the maniac demands her total submission. Threatening her with his sword, he forces a sick declaration of love under pressure. Demanding to hear the magic words, he doesn't notice the danger approaching from behind. Staring right at our protagonist, the girl says she loves the man behind the villain. Confused by her answer, the thug slowly turns his head, not understanding a thing. Piercing through the scoundrel's chest, the protagonist's sword delivers swift justice. Raking in points with the hero combo, the system approves the stealthy takedown with a bonus. Thanking him with a blush, the girl breathes a sigh of relief, having been saved from certain doom. Dismissing her thanks, he's already leaving as if it were no big deal. Calling out desperately, she asks if he's really going to leave her there in her condition. Answering bluntly, he warns that he doesn't handle anyone's physiological needs. Explaining that he misunderstood, she asks for help to break free from the invisible bonds. Cutting the ropes in a single strike, he says the job is done and goodbye. Covering her body with her cloak, she tells him the problem is much deeper than that. Explaining she was poisoned with a sealing powder, she asks him to expel the toxin. Appealing to his ego, the young woman says this is his chance to prove he's a real hero. Turning his back, he doesn't even care until he hears the magic word, payment. Returning at the speed of light, he says his virtue suddenly spoke louder. Asking to be kissed, the girl shocks him with her direct proposal. Accepting the challenge on the spot, our boy moves in for the kiss without a second thought. Shoving the hair away, she turns red with embarrassment and indignation. Yelling that she hadn't finished speaking, she defends her offended chastity. Complaining about how fast he was, she tries to explain the ritual properly without freaking out. Interrupting the conversation, the fairy warns that there are only 10 minutes left before the mission fails. Rushing her explanation, he says he has no time for romantic dawdling right now. Teaching him the method, she says she needs to transfer energy mouth to heal. Understanding the absurd logic, he realizes he'll have to perform a magical mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Calling it a forbidden art, he makes up a ridiculous lie to justify the kiss. Hearing that, the girl's eyes widen, impressed by the supposed mystical power. However, still suspicious, she demands that he prove its effectiveness right now. Poking at his ego, the young woman mockingly asks if the Kero is incapable. Getting ticked off by the insinuation, our protagonist refuses to be challenged like that. Throwing it in her face that he saved her life, he puts on a basic drama about ingratitude. Realizing her mistake, the girl feels like complete trash for having doubted him. Apologizing sincerely, she lets her guard down and accepts anything. Seeing her tears fall, the system notifies him that he made the girl cry with guilt. Telling her to stop crying, he decides to get this over with. 5 minutes later, the medical treatment takes place right there in the middle of the woods. Feeling her body become light, she confirms with surprise that the poison is completely gone. Handing over a heavy bag of gold, the debt is paid with interest and fees. Saying his goodbyes, our boy leaves, but she desperately shouts, asking for his name. Revealing he is Duan, he leaves his trademark before disappearing into the forest. Thinking about the name Duan, she finds it strange that a small clan has someone so powerful. Try to call him back, the mysterious man has already vanished without a trace. Vowing to find her savior again, the girl swears she won't give up so easily. And remembering the healing technique, the sly girl admits she wants to do it again soon. Returning to civilization, the smell of freshly made food awakens the monster's hunger. Asking for 10 baskets of buns, the vendor thinks it's a prank or an exaggeration. Tossing the money on the table, our protagonist tells him to hurry up with the order, no questions asked. Complaining to the system, he says he's not a machine to be doing so many missions in a row. Walking through the streets with his purchases, he ignores the curious stares of the people. Leaving breakfast at his sister's door, he tells her they'll go shopping later. Getting into the hot bath, it's finally time for some well-deserved rest. Relaxing his muscles in the water, he feels that life is slowly getting better. But finding a note, he sees that his sister went out to see a friend in the city. Deciding to sleep all day, he covers himself up to his head to ignore the world. However, the system fairy wakes him up with a flying kick, telling him to get to work right now. Reading the new mission, the punishment for failure involves having his legs brutally broken. Arguing with the fairy, he calls the system a heartless, exploitative capitalist. Arriving at the test site, a large crowd has already gathered to watch. Watching from above, someone is violently thrown out of the arena. Screaming in surprise, the crowd makes way, not understanding the commotion that has formed. Landing in the middle of the square, our protagonist makes a dramatic entrance, kicking up dust. Asking to sign up, he faces the registration with absolute seriousness. Saying the name Duan, an awkward silence immediately fills the place. His eyes widening, the old examiner can't believe the boy's audacity. Laughing at him, the onlookers start to mock and call him a dead man walking. Advising the boy to get some help, the elder tries to dismiss him to avoid trouble. Insisting on participating, he affirms that he's not there to joke around or for a stroll. Interrupting the conversation, an arrogant reedhead loudly questions his qualifications. Citing the clan's rules, she reminds everyone that the young master has a guaranteed spot by law. But with a wicked smile, the girl says that a piece of trash doesn't deserve any title. Reinforcing his position, he reminds her that the rules were made by his grandfather. Pointing a finger in his face, a lackey tries to humiliate our boy in front of everyone. But with no patience for nonsense, the protagonist kicks the unfortunate guy hard in the face. Flying far away, the guy is knocked out instantly, securing extra points for the system. Startled by the brute force, the redhead draws her sword, calling him an insolent brat. Ordering him to kneel, she charges at him with clear intent to harm. Bringing down her giant blade, her attack aims to cut him in half without mercy. Dodging with elegance, he makes the blow look like it's in slow motion. Swinging her sword through empty air, the girl starts to get nervous about her failure. Shattering the stone floor, the impact of the weapon kicks up dust and debris. Watching the fight, one of the elders notices that the boy is no longer the same useless person. Screaming in panic, the audience backs away to avoid getting caught in the mess. Continuing her blind offensive, she tries to hit him any way she can in her anger. Frustrated that she can't touch him, she refuses to accept the skill gap. Mocking her performance, our protagonist says she's just a noisy extra. Asking her older brother for help, the spoiled girl demands immediate revenge against the protagonist. Facing the villainous duo, our boy isn't fazed by the new threat. Using the Phantom Step, he vanishes from everyone's sight in the blink of an eye. Preparing a kick, he announces that the city will have one less idiot today. Landing a direct hit on the opponent's chin, the sound of the impact is brutal and sharp. Warning him too late, the sister watches her brother get demolished in mid-air with no reaction. Hovering over his enemies, his martial superiority is undeniable at that moment. Smashing the guy into the rubble, dust covers the playboy's shameful defeat. Running to her fallen brother, the redhead falls into complete despair at the scene. Threatening the protagonist, she says that attacking the leader's nephew is a capital crime. Ignoring the drama, he tells Miss Drama Queen to go tattle to her daddy. Declaring war on the clan, he promises to humiliate everyone at tomorrow's test. Outraged by his boldness, she asks if the elder is going to let this insult slide. Writing the name on the list, the old man confirms that the rules were followed correctly. Sighing deeply, he knows that the next day is going to be pure chaos. Walking down the busy street, our protagonist reflects on his recent progress. But the system warns that great success requires worthy enemies to test one's strength. Suspicious of this logic, he asks if the fairy is attracting trouble on purpose. Suddenly, a commotion up ahead interrupts their chat and catches his attention. Observing the scene from a distance, he realizes something unfair is happening. Kneeling on the ground, a girl is trying to sell her own freedom to bury her father. Offering a measly sum, a disgusting fellow tosses a gold coin as if it were a lot. Refusing the humiliating offer, the girl is forcefully grabbed by the villain's goons. Shouting for them to let her go immediately, someone appears to restore order. Jumping into the middle of the circle, our boy demands they take their filthy hands off the young woman. Declaring he's taking the girl, he challenges the authority of the local playboy. Laughing in his face, the villain asks who this idiot is who dares to interfere. And the answer comes in the form of a resounding slap that turns the jerk's head. In disbelief over the assault, the rich kid can't process that he just got hit in public. Mocking him coldly, our protagonist says he was just swatting a fly on his face. Furious with the lame excuse, the villain orders his goons to grab the insolent guy. However, in a matter of seconds, the lackeys are sent flying through the air from the beating they take. Groaning in pain on the ground, the entire gang was dismantled effortlessly. Threatening to kick his family jewels, the protagonist warns that the next blow will hurt more. Choosing to flee to save his lineage, the coward runs off screaming for help. With the problem solved, he hands the girl the money she needs for the burial. Refusing the large amount, she says it's much more than she needs for the ceremony. Insisting she take it, he suggests using the change to start a new life. Comforted by his kindness, the girl feels she has finally found hope. Promising eternal gratitude, she vows to return as soon as the funeral rites are over. Declaring her loyalty, the young woman announces that from this day on, she belongs to her benefactor. Confirming the mission's success, the system registers the new ally in its database. Later at the inn, the fairy complains that becoming a maid wasn't in the contract. Choked by a giant hand, the little one desperately tries to break free. Choking on a bun, our boy coughs uncontrollably and almost takes out the fairy by accident. Coughing violently, he finally manages to breathe and releases the poor thing. On the table, a mysterious silk bag glows as a reward for his good deed. Explaining the item, the system says that punishing evil and promoting good yields rare prizes. Furious about being grabbed earlier, the fairy kicks the air and says she's not helping anymore. Laughing at her tantrum, he says he's lost interest in talking too. Holding the bag of wishes, curiosity speaks louder than pride. And the fairy explains that he can ask for anything, and the system will try to make it happen. Without much thought, he decides he needs to get strong fast so he doesn't meet his end. Asking to jump straight to the 9th stage of the martial realm, his ambition is huge. Crying with laughter, the fairy says he's dreaming way too big for his current balance. Pulling out a calculator, she shows that the required points are astronomical. Calculating the absurd exchange rate, he realizes it's going to take an eternity. Offering a viable alternative, she hands him a max-level technique manual. Complaining about the handout, he says he would have preferred instant power. But flipping through the book, the quality of the technique surprises even the biggest skeptic. Deciding to sell the technique for cash, he makes a few adjustments to be discreet. In front of the Merchants Guild, the imposing facade shows that big money moves here. Approaching the counter, he asks for a professional appraisal of the item. Invited to sit, the atmosphere shifts to something more private and chic. Handing over the manual, the old appraiser takes the book with initial disdain. Commenting that it looks like something basic, the expert almost dismisses the deal on the spot. Serving tea elegantly, the attendant tries to keep the mood pleasant. Correcting the old man, our protagonist suggests he look more closely at the details. Stuttering in shock, the appraiser realizes he's holding a peak-level treasure. Apologizing for his ignorance, he begs for a second chance to analyze it. Trembling with excitement, the old man confirms he has never seen such a perfect introductory technique. Promising it will be a highlight at the auction, he guarantees the profit will be insane. Receiving a celestial token, his treatment changes from a regular customer to a supreme VIP. Guided through the corridors, he is taken to the most exclusive area of the establishment. Following the employee, his anticipation for the auction only grows. Relaxing in the luxury suite, the rich life seems to suit him well. Eating exotic fruits, he waits for the event to begin without any rush. With a knock on the door, a soft voice asks for permission to enter and serve. Entering the room, the girl enro appears, dressed provocatively. Surprised to see her benefactor, she blushes with embarrassment on the spot. Explaining she was sent to serve him, she trembles, afraid of making a mistake. Annoyed by the guild's audacity, he realizes the leader, Yanchukshu, is testing him. Tossing a cloak over her, he firmly refuses the special service. Protected by the fabric, the girl doesn't understand the refusal at first. Crying again, she says if she fails the mission, she'll be sold as a servant. Calming the girl down, he promises to sort everything out with the bosses later. Relieved that she doesn't have to do anything she doesn't want to, she thanks him with her eyes. Offering her food, he realizes the poor thing must be starving. Devouring the sweets with relish, her sadness vanishes in an instant. Smiling at the scene, he asks if the guild doesn't feed its employees. Blushing with embarrassment, the girl quickly denies having any impure thoughts about the service. Entering the room, a guild employee announces that the auction was a complete success. Adjusting the mask on his face, our protagonist gets ready to receive a mountain of money. Walking through the luxurious corridors, he follows the guide towards the main office. Grinning from ear to ear, the appraiser congratulates the boy on the $1 million sale. Surprised by the final amount, he wonders which fool paid so much for it. Bringing the tray herself, the beautiful Yan Chukshu appears, looking stunning. Commenting on the buyers, she mentions that the Duan clan is desperate for power. After deducting the service fee, the net amount is deposited into his account in a flash. Refusing the standard card, the woman offers her personal gold-level card as a courtesy. Thanking her for the hospitality, he decides to leave before the situation gets more complicated. Leaving the room, the mystery of his identity remains safe for now. Warning the appraiser, the boss strictly forbids any investigation into the client. Stroking his chin, the old man understands that this boy is untouchable and must be respected. Sniffing the card the boss gave him, the maid blushes, smelling another woman's perfume. Blocking the way at the exit, a shady-looking guy questions their presence there. Laughing scornfully, the fat manager mocks the simple clothes the protagonist is wearing. Asking what the girl did wrong, the tension starts to rise at the entrance. Judging his humble appearance, he asserts that beggars shouldn't be frequenting the place. Threatening to punish the girl, the fat man thinks he has absolute authority over the staff. Grabbing her arm forcefully, he says her fate is to be sold into servitude. Grabbing the aggressor's wrist, our boy stops the violent move at the perfect moment. Twisting the fat man's arm, the protagonist warns that people are not merchandise to be traded. Kicking the unfortunate man in the stomach, he sends the manager flying with a swift blow. Yelling for reinforcements, the fat man on the ground demands the guards arrest the intruder. Watching from afar, the appraiser notices the commotion brewing in the guild's courtyard. Rushing to intervene, the old man recognizes the troublesome manager making a mess. Cursing mentally, the appraiser realizes the idiot just offended the VIP client. Pointing at our hero, the fat man orders the guards to attack without mercy. Shouting for them to stop everything, Master Shao arrives, commanding respect and breaking up the fight. Calling the old man Hunkle, the manager tries to play the innocent victim in front of everyone. Ordering his nephew to kneel, the old man doesn't want to hear any lame excuses now. Pointing his finger at the protagonist, the fool continues to accuse the client of assault. Landing a colossal slap on his face, the uncle demands obedience and immediate silence. Bowing before the master, the appraiser apologizes on behalf of the entire guild. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the manager finally shuts his mouth in terror. Clasping his hands in respect, the old man awaits the sentence the guest will decide on. Grabbing his uncle's leg, the fat man begs for mercy, mentioning his mother to try and escape. Kicking his relative without hesitation, the old man says he has no nephew this stupid. Passing on the responsibility, the protagonist says the victim is the one who should decide the punishment. Looking at the girl, he gives her the power of decision to serve justice. Pointing to herself, the girl can't believe she has a say against her boss. Simply saying she never wants to see that man again, she seals his fate. Pleading to stay with her master, the girl kneels in total gratitude. Questioning the old man, our protagonist asks why the guild won't just release the maid. Agreeing immediately, the appraiser says he can take as many maids as he wants. Thanking him for his generosity, the pair leaves the manager lying on the ground and walks away. Finding his sister's long absence strange, he wonders why she hasn't returned home yet. Handing her a bag of money, he ensures his new ally's livelihood for a long time. Her eyes widening at the amount, the girl tries to refuse, thinking it's too much. Cutting off her thanks, he tells her to take good care of his sister as payment. Swearing eternal loyalty, the girl promises not to fail in her mission to protect the family. Holding the golden card, he tells the fairy to spend it all without hesitation to level up. Covering the fairy's eyes, he hides the card's PN for security. Processing the payment, the machine confirms the conversion of gold into show-off points. Sniffing the card, the fairy complains jealously that it smells like another woman. Exploding in a golden light, the system announces a direct promotion to the 9th stage. Feeling his body is normal, he finds it odd that not much has changed physically. Calculating the cultivation time, the fairy says the energy will stabilize by morning. Lying down in bed, he decides to sleep soundly until the day of the test begins. Glowing in intense green, the test stone confirms someone's powerful 8th stage. Praising the candidate Aoyang, the onlookers say she's a perfect match for the clan. Asking the reason for her visit, a nobleman questions the guild leader's presence there. Searching for someone in the crowd, Yan Chukshu admits she has a personal interest in the event. Noticing someone's arrival, the woman smiles upon finding who she was looking for. Making his way through the crowd, our protagonist arrives, telling everyone to get out of the way. Mocking their late cousin, the jealous relatives start whispering and snickering. Thinking of how to take the boy out, the uncle plans to get rid of him right after the test. Whispering his name, the guild leader and the other girl keep a close watch. Touching the stone with confidence, the result of the 7th stage appears for all to see. Covering her mouth in surprise, Yan Chukshu doesn't understand how he leveled up so fast. Trembling in fear, the previous candidate realizes the boy is very dangerous. Clenching his fist in anger, a rival refuses to accept the protagonist's sudden success. Facing the crowd coldly, he makes it clear that he's back to stay at the top. Suggesting they skip steps, the old examiner says he doesn't even need to lift the weight. Drawing the next opponent from the box, our protagonist lets fate decide who's getting a beat down. Looking at the paper with Group A, he wonders who the unlucky one will be. Smiling deceitfully, his cousin Ayang reveals she also drew the same group. Taunting him ahead of time, she promises to go easy on him for the sake of their old family friendship. Drawing her sword, the girl warns that she'll fight with all her might to not disappoint. Ironically telling her to calm down, our boy tells her not to try so hard. Unleashing a wave of cutting energy, she attacks with the intent to finish it quickly from the start. But dodging with his hands in his pockets, he makes the blow look like it's in slow motion. Yawning from boredom in the middle of the arena, the protagonist complains that the fight is getting dull. Furious with the disrespect, she can't believe he's treating it all as a joke. Trying to maintain his dignity, he says he wanted to give her an honorable way out. Refusing his pity, the girl prepares her final blow full of light and fury. Observing the familiar technique, he notes it's the breeze style she boasts so much about. Praising the girl, the elders in the audience swear she's a cultivation genius. Sucking up to her father, the other elder says the talent runs in the family. Criticizing the move, he calls the attack call flash and no substance. Questioning how he found the weakness so quickly, the girl panics. Offering a free lesson, he asks if she wants to know where she went wrong. Rushing to attack again, she yells that she'll use the opening he left. Asking if she'll get off the stage the easy way or the hard way, he draws his sword. Clasping his hands in prayer, the protagonist apologizes in advance for the damage. Activating an essence shield, his cousin tries to protect herself from the imminent impact. Punching the magic barrier, his fist glows with incredible force. Cracking like glass, her impenetrable defense can't withstand the pressure of the blow. Flying through the air, the girl is violently thrown out of the arena. Shocked by the result, the spectators see the mark of the 9th stage glow. Falling on her butt, the clan's genius was defeated with a single move. Helping his cousin up, the villain Duan-san arrives, playing the good guy. Greeting his rival with sarcasm, our protagonist says it's been a while. Facing his traitorous cousin, he ironically thanks him for pushing him off the cliff. Recalling the past, the villain says he found a dark master after the accident. Attributing his current strength to that cruel training, he brags about his new power. Watching from the sidelines, the fairy comments that the guy used a cheat code to level up. Suggesting he use a shortcut too, she offers our boy an illegal boost. Refusing to cheat, he says he'd rather win fair and square and humiliate his opponent. Interrupting their chat, the villain's father suggests a break for recovery. Discreetly handing over a pill, the cheating old man winks at his son. Questioning why the protagonist isn't eating anything, his cousin tries to hide the full play. Analyzing the item, the fairy detects a magic sealing poison mixed with the healing properties. Offering to purify the pill, she charges a high price but guarantees the effect will be incredible. Reluctantly paying the 2,000 points, he seals the deal on the spot. Returning to the arena, the two combatants face off, ready to go for the kill. Banging on the weapon in the system, the fairy takes the opportunity to upgrade the equipment. Glowing intensely, the Tiangxiu's sword levels up to the top of its class. Pointing the new blade at his enemy, our boy warns that playtime is over. Fighting dirty, the villain aims straight for the legs to incapacitate him. Leaping with agility, the protagonist avoids the fatal blow that would have cut his tendons. Staying focused, he notices his cousin's style is centered on brutal takedowns. Taunting his opponent, Duan-san asks if he's afraid of meeting his end again. Calm as water, our hero simply observes the enemy's frantic movements. Closing his eyes in the middle of the fight, he seems to either give up or meditate. Concentrating energy into his sword, the villain prepares the clean cut with full force. With a slight smile, the protagonist mocks him, saying he only knows one trick. Leaping over the energy blast, he avoids the destruction of the scenery. Vowing to end it all, the villain unleashes more power, trying to hit the airborne target. Explain the technique, the protagonist says the breeze style is pure and just, but his face contorting in shock, the enemy sees the blade getting way too close. Collecting on an old debt, our boy attacks for the honor of his offended sister. Slashing the villain's chest, blood sprays out along with his arrogance. Finishing the pose with style, he announces the final form of the sword technique. Talking with concern, the uncle realizes the poison plan might have failed. Remembering he helped cripple the protagonist in the past, the fear of revenge hits hard. Questioning how he still has power, the old man doesn't understand his resistance to the seal. Refusing to accept defeat, the villain Duan-san screams that he won't lose to trash. Ripping his shirt with muscular pressure, he activates a forbidden body technique. Charging like a tank, his punch aims to crush the protagonist's head. Thinking brute force solves everything, he underestimates the refined technique. Blocking the monstrous attack with just one hand, the scene shocks the entire audience. Holding the giant fist, the protagonist proves the level difference is astronomical. Trying to break free, the villain struggles but can't move an inch. Kicking the brute in the stomach, our boy makes him spit out his lunch. Falling to his knees in humiliation, the young master still refuses to admit it's over. Stepping on his chest, the protagonist says he'd actually prefer if he didn't surrender. Laughing diabolically, he prepares the finishing blow to break his bones. Rushing into the arena, the villain's desperate father runs to prevent the tragedy. Shouting furiously, the clan leader questions if the boy wants to meet his end for defying him. Pointing a finger in his face, our protagonist doesn't back down and holds his gaze. Advising surrender, the surrounding relatives try to avoid the worst-case scenario. Stepping on his defeated cousin's neck, he makes it clear he won't take orders from hypocrites. Calling out for his son, the leader sees the humiliating scene with his own eyes and loses his cool. Threatening to take him out, the old man warns that the boy is a dead man from now on. Sensing the imminent danger, Miss Yan is shocked by the escalation of violence. Activating an oppressive aura, the cowardly attack begins to drain energy from the surroundings. Ignoring the tournament rules, the leader treacherously launches a deadly 6th stage blow. Promising the boy's end, the giant energy fist rushes forward to crush him. Suddenly blocking the path, Chukshu interferes, shouting for them to stop immediately. Justifying his aggression, the old man says he needs to clean house and punish disobedience. Questioning him coldly, the beautiful leader demands to know exactly which law was broken. Defending the fair victory, she reminds him that everyone saw the honest outcome of the fight. Ordering the arrest anyway, the leader ignores all logic and commands his guards to advance. Declaring war on anyone who touches him, the leader imposes the authority of the Merchants Guild. Threatening to cut business ties, she mercilessly backs the Duan family into a corner. Recalling the past, the old man tries to use his expulsion from the family tree as an excuse. Refuting his argument, she says that if he was expelled, the clan's laws no longer apply. But admitting that if he regained his strength, then he is the true and undisputed heir. Watching the drama, our boy sees the leader break into a cold sweat as he realizes he's trapped. Apologizing with a fake smile, the old man pretends it was just an emotional slip-up. Offering a suspicious pill, he tries to buy peace with a reconciliation gift. Winking at the boy, Chukshu suggests he accept the offer to end the conflict. Wary of his harmful intentions, our protagonist hesitates to take the item from the enemy's hand. Warning that refusal would be a final sentence, the leader signals the dangerous political game. Reluctantly taking the gift, he decides to play along to survive today. Thinking of the debt he owes her, the boy agrees to swallow his pride for now. Accepting the pill on his behalf, the guild guarantees the item's safety and purity. Storing the disguised poison, she warns that she'll only return it when he's ready to use it. Commenting on the false truths, Chukshu analyzes the boy's coldness and forgiving. Lying on the ground in anger, the old leader must be fuming over the humiliation he suffered. Changing the scene, the two talk alone in the guild's luxurious office. Asking about his mysteries, the beautiful leader wants honest answers now. Staring at the wine glass, the mood becomes tense and seductive between them. Revealing his identity, he admits he was always the mysterious client she was looking for. Climbing onto the table provocatively, she says that was already way too obvious. Demanding to know who the master behind him is, her curiosity becomes dangerous. Panicking, the system fairy thinks the jig is up and their cover is blown. Imagining being dissected, the little one trembles in fear of the woman's scientific intentions. Keeping the secret, our protagonist firmly states he can't say anything about his master. Accepting his refusal, she decides to collect payment for the information in another way. Demanding the mouth-to-mouth resuscitation lesson, she advances with explicitly bad intentions. Stuttering nervously, he realizes he's fallen into his own deceptive trap. Going on the attack, the guild leader decides to take the initiative with a kiss without waiting. Interrupting the intimate moment, the maid bursts into the room shouting for her master. Startled by the spicy scene, the girl doesn't know where to hide her face in embarrassment. Bringing terrible news, she announces that his sister has been kidnapped and taken to the pleasure tower. Warning of the danger, Chukshu advises caution against the powerful Lu family. Rushing out, our boy doesn't even wait for the warning to finish and disappears into the night. Responding with hatred in his eyes, he says he'll cause a bloodbath to rescue his sister. Showing the grim location, several girls are trapped in cages like animals. Waking up dizzy, his sister Yor doesn't understand where she is and feels her head ache. Groaning in pain, her friend beside her also regains consciousness in the nightmare. Trading the girls like merchandise, the thugs outside laugh at their misery. Humiliating himself for money, one of the goons acts like a dog for the rich master. Recognizing the establishment, the sister feels terror run down her spine upon knowing where she is. Apologizing, her friend Xiaomo blames herself for getting her involved in this mess. Explaining the beef, she says she angered someone important from the Lu family in the past. Mocking their friendship, the villain appears in the cell to ruin the touching moment. Announcing the new merchandise, the auctioneer presents the two fresh virgins to the audience. Celebrating their luck, the creeps in the audience greedily prepare their bids. Fighting over the price, two rich kids start a ridiculous ego battle. Kicking down the door with an absurd offer, someone ends the argument instantly with 1,000 coins. Walking with arrogance, young master Fu demands passage and respect from everyone. Praising the playboy's cultivation, the bootlickers quickly make way for the nobleman. Ordering the girls to be taken to the VIP room, the manager wants to please the powerful client. Desperate about her cruel fate, the friend cries without any hope of salvation. Wishing to be family in the next life, the sister surrenders to her tragic end in tears. Exploding the wall violently, our protagonist arrives, destroying everything to save the day. Asking if they're hurt, he looks with concern through the twisted bars. Destroying the cell with a single blow, he frees the prisoners from captivity. Hugging her savior, her friend Xiaomo recognizes the old acquaintance with relief. Clapping sarcastically, the main villain finally shows up, finding it amusing. Ordering the intruder's demise, he tells the guards to attack the criminal, without mercy. Bragging about his security, the villain claims no one dares cause trouble with 4 experts there. Worried about the situation, the girl warns it's better to flee as the enemies are very strong. Coldly, our protagonist replies that he doesn't care about numbers when they mess with his family. Pointing and laughing, the goon calls him a loser who only knows how to talk tough. Lunging to attack, the lackey throws a direct punch full of confidence. However, with lightning speed, the boy catches the fist in mid-air with no effort at all. Seeing the impossible move, the other guards freeze for a second, not understanding. Yelling from above, the boss orders them to take out the intruder without mercy right now. Twisting the enemy's arm, the protagonist accepts the challenge to fight to the end. And with a horrific crack, the bone breaks, making the goon scream at agony. Grouping up to attack, the remaining three cowardly advance together. Leading the charge, the big guy thinks brute force will solve the problem. But leaping into the air, our hero unleashes the ice palm technique with fury. Hitting the enemy's chest, the freezing energy instantly penetrates his organs. Enveloped by the cold mist, the attackers stop in their tracks, completely frozen. Pointing to the boss, he warns that now it's the mastermind's turn to pay up. Complaining about the waste of time, he draws his gleaming blade with deadly intent. In the blink of an eye, chaos erupts and screams of terror fill the hall. Trembling with fear, the villain can't believe his elite guards were taken out so quickly. Using the phantom step, our protagonist appears behind the enemy before he can blink. Screaming for help, the coward offers the girls for free to try and save his own skin. Grabbing his leg, the protagonist prevents any chance of a shameful escape. Begging for his life, the rich kid offers the deed to the entire pleasure tower as a bribe. Pausing for a second, he asks if the guy is serious about giving him the building. With a cynical smile, he replies that he doesn't like taking things from others. Deciding his final fate, he warns that he'll bury the building along with its owner. Turning to the girls, he tells them to get out of there immediately for their own safety. Handing them a bag of gold, he ensures the duo's escape to a new life far away. Before they leave, he asks to borrow one of their swords to finish the job. Setting a timer, he announces that in 10 minutes, the place will be ashes. Safe at the inn, the guild leader warns him that he's picked a fight with two powerful families. Ignoring the lecture, our boy focuses completely on the delicious food on the table. Nagging him relentlessly, the fairy demands he open the reward chests now. Revealing the prizes, the system grants a legendary medical skill and a GPS tracker. Asking for a refund on the upgrade, he gets shot down by the fairy, who refuses to undo the exchange. Complaining about his life, he realizes he has become a slave to the system forever. But wiping away her fake tears, the fairy celebrates the points gained from the destruction. Bursting into the room, a servant desperately screams that the guild master is on his last breath. Diagnosing the symptoms, Yanchukshu identifies the deadly parasitic black malaria. Lamenting the past, she says they never found the rare cure in time. Interrupting the sadness, the protagonist claims his master taught him how to cure it. Desperate for a miracle, she promises any reward if he saves her father. Mentally, he celebrates that the old man is now his father, too, because of the inheritance. Arriving at the sick man's room, the atmosphere is heavy, and the smell of death hangs in the air. Delirious with fever, her father alternates between infernal heat and deadly cold. Activating the celestial eye, he scans the patient's body in search of the real problem. Detecting the culprit, he sees a disgusting parasite lodged deep in the energy center. Analyzing the damage, he notices the old man's cultivation has dropped drastically because of the creature. Consulting the fairy, he confirms that his new medical skill can handle this plague. Unleashing the god of medicine mode, his aura changes to that of a divine healer. Dressed as a nurse, the fairy provides moral support while he prepares the procedure. Holding the golden needle, he concentrates for the delicate spiritual surgery. Writing a quick prescription, he asks for ingredients to stabilize the condition first. Suddenly, a famous doctor arrives, acting like he owns the place and knows everything. Praising his own presence, Dr. Lee guarantees that only he can save the day. Confirming the diagnosis, he acts arrogantly for identifying the obvious illness. Defending our protagonist, the leader announces that the treatment has already begun and is stable. Mocking him openly, the doctor's assistant calls our boy trash from the Duan clan. Annoyed by the unprovoked insult, Yanchukshu demands respect in her own home. With an air of superiority, the old doctor claims the brat knows nothing about medicine. Ignoring the warnings, the old doctor decides to apply his own sealing technique. Sticking in the green needle, he injects energy to try and brute force the parasite. However, enraged by the attack, the monster retaliates and devours the invading energy. Spitting up black blood, the patient's condition worsens instantly, and he starts convulsing. Shocked by the resistance, the doctor doesn't understand how his technique failed so miserably. Admitting defeat, he regretfully declares that the case is impossible to save. Pointing a finger at him, the assistant accuses the protagonist of interfering earlier. Keeping his cool, the boy explains where the supposed expert went terribly wrong in his theory. Detailing the biology, he reveals that the worm is fused with the host's life, and brute force would take out both. Yelling in anger, the disciple challenges the protagonist to a duel for insulting his grandfather. Telling his grandson to shut up, Dr. Lo realizes he made a huge mistake earlier. Bowing humbly, he admits his error and begs the young master to take over. In disbelief at the scene, the assistant watches his idol humiliate himself before the clan's trash. Sighing deeply, our protagonist says he'll now have to use the aggressive method. Asking to borrow the silver needles, he gets ready to show them how it's done. With his divine vision activated, he locates the target with surgical precision through the skin. And seeing through the flesh, the dark parasite tries to hide from the intense light. But reacting to the danger, the creature thrashes violently inside the old man's body. However, ordinary silver needles can't even come close to piercing this supernatural defense. Offering the perfect tool, Miss Yan hands him a special case that glows brightly. Recognizing the legend, Dr. Lee identifies the rare ice soul silver needles. Accepting the valuable gift, our protagonist confirms that this will do for the dirty work. Burning the parasite with pure yang energy, the thing starts to lose strength and retreat. Smiling confidently, he warns that there's no escape for the monster now. Sticking 7 needles into vital points, the enemy seal is complete and firm. Ordering them to lift the patient, the final phase of the extraction begins immediately. Holding him steady, the girls support the old man as the magic happens before their eyes. Pulling the energy outward, a golden light expels the evil through the host's mouth. Spitting up black blood, the master finally vomits the deadly invader onto the floor. Writhing on the ground, the demonic snake still tries to move uselessly. Stepping on the beast's head, he mercilessly calls the creature a cursed plague. And crushing the creature with a disgusting pop, the problem is solved with a bit of violence. Kneeling in gratitude, the young master Duan thanks him for saving his brother from certain doom. Promising eternal favors, the beautiful Yan says the entire guild is in his debt. Praising his incredible talent, the old doctor admits his eyes have been opened today. Slapping his jealous grandson, the grandfather demands immediate respect before the true master. Crying with his hand on his head, the kid gets scolded in front of everyone for being a fool. Popping up to collect, the system fairy presents the hefty bill with a smile. Calculating the expenses for the celestial eye, the protagonist's balance drops dangerously into the red. Insisting on paying somehow, the guild leader wants to return the kindness right away. Suggesting an arranged marriage, the old doctor tries to play the clever matchmaker. Pushing the young woman towards the protagonist, he says she would be the ideal payment for the cure. Covering her red face, the girl thinks her uncle is joking, but deep down she likes the idea. Creating a romantic mood, pink lights surround the love-struck couple in her imagination. Shyly accepting the proposal, she says yes, to what she thinks is a marriage proposal. Pointing to the needle case, our boy clarifies that he just wants to borrow the item. Shocked by the rejection, the girl realizes she misunderstood everything and almost dies of embarrassment. Laughing out loud at the situation, the uncle finds the general naivete and awkwardness amusing. Mocking the secondhand embarrassment, the fairy has fun floating over the historic blunder. Quickly changing the subject, he asks to go to the guild's pharmacy to pick up some medicine. Walking through the busy streets, the pair draws attention with their beauty and fine clothes. Thinking about his point debt, he needs to come up with a plan to make a quick profit and pay the system. Arriving at the establishment, the imposing facade shows the Yan family's financial power. Admiring the interior decor, the place is worthy of the city's largest merchant guild. Introducing the manager, Miss Yan calls for the famous and competent Sister Hong. Turning to the customers, a woman of mature beauty and dangerous curves steals the show. Surprised by her appearance, he notices something strange and exotic about her. Seeing elven ears, he thinks the system has bugged his vision with hallucinations again. Rubbing his eyes hard, the image seems to flicker and slowly disappear. Returning to normal, the woman smiles kindly as if nothing happened. Listing the medicines for the old man, the guild leader begins the essential shopping. Suddenly, a guy is kicked out of the store, sent flying and causing a commotion at the entrance. Yelling that they were cheated, a group of armed, bald men loudly demand satisfaction. Maintaining a firm posture, Manager Hong faces the troublemakers with a cold, calculating gaze. Accusing the store of selling poison, they claim their boss swallowed a deadly beetle in the herbs. Analyzing the merchandise from afar, our protagonist senses something fishy about this poorly told story. Worried about their reputation, the other customers start whispering and doubting the quality. Asking about the pest, Miss Yan admits she's never heard of that creature before. Interrupting the scene, our boy says he's an expert in cases of imminent demise. Admiring his courage, little Yan clasps her hands, rooting for his plan to succeed. Explaining the insect's biology, he says the creature sucks spiritual energy until everything is dry. Detailing the horrific end, he warns that the host feels their skin melting from the inside. Crossing his arms, the leader of the thugs arrogantly asks if they're going to pay compensation or not. Defending her business, Sister Hong says she would never sell something spoiled to anyone. Offering a free diagnosis, our protagonist approaches a supposed patient with a smile. Denying the existence of a cure for the poison, he says that in this case, medicine alone won't work. Smiling maliciously, the boy warns that you deal with the quack with your fists. Landing a solid punch to the stomach, the thug almost throws up his guts from the impact. Drawing their knives, the goons charge forward, yelling to defend their assaulted boss. Dodging the attacks, he steps on the lackeys' heads without breaking a sweat. Asking for a bucket of golden juice, he says he's going to purge the poison with waste. Instantly cured, the leader of the scammers says it was just a passing cramp. Holding a sword to his neck, our protagonist asks if the pain is really gone or if he needs more. Stuttering in terror, the swindler realizes too late that he messed with the wrong person. Confessing his crime on his knees, he admits he made up the beetle out of pure greed. Deciding to be benevolent, Sister Hong suggests letting it go and releasing the idiots. Justifying her leniency, she says she doesn't want any trouble in the store on her birthday. Accepting the owner's decision, our protagonist imposes just one extra condition for their release. Holding a sign that says, "I'm a scammer," the thug becomes a humiliated tourist attraction on the street. Handing him a black card, the manager guarantees lifetime VIP treatment for the new hero. With a professional smile, Sister Hong assures them that the old master's medicine will be delivered by a trusted expert to put everyone at ease. On their way out of the store, the duo prepares to leave, but his friend Chukshu still seems worried, looking back. Suddenly, her expression changes completely upon hearing a whispered comment that catches her off guard. Impressed by the boy's attitude, the manager comments to herself on how that little one knows to strike first and command respect. However, Chukshu warns Sister Hong not to mess with him again and not to let an opportunity like this slip through her fingers. Curious about the whispering behind him, our protagonist asks if they need a moment alone, but the girl plays it off and pulls him along. Shortly after, the system fairy appears, complaining that he has no ambition and that living by her rules is a bore. Ignoring the little one's drama, he remembers he has a pending lucky spin and decides to claim his prize right now. Showing the colorful wheel, the fairy asks with boredom if he wants to skip the animation and go straight to the bureaucratic result. With total disinterest, our boy tells her to just hand over the item, since he knows the game is rigged by her anyway. In a flash of blue light, the system delivers Sol Perception, explaining it's an essential talent for alchemists to see the invisible. Activating the new skill immediately, his eyes glow golden, ready to scan the environment's details. To check the true power of its range, he expands his consciousness, trying to see how far the X-ray vision works in practice. But the image that appears in his mind is just a dark silhouette, and he complains indignantly that the censorship is way too strong. Faced with that censored view of her curves, he decides he urgently needs to upgrade this skill to 4K to see the important details. Judging by Sister Hong's silhouette, her posture seems very strange and indicates that something is wrong in the next room. Immediately, his face changes to pure shock as he realizes the woman is in real, life-threatening danger and needs help.